So, you have decided to join the millions of other aquarium hobbyists and set up a saltwater swim tank. Well, you've definitely made the right choice in watching this video, because we're going to cover the ins and outs of setting up a saltwater swim tank. During this video, we will assume you have not purchased any of your aquarium supplies yet. But even if you have, it's still a good idea to run through all of the sections of this video, as we will thoroughly cover what it takes to successfully set up your saltwater fish aquarium. It's also a good idea to have a pen and paper handy so you can write down some of the helpful notes. So follow along while we learn about one of the most popular hobbies today. In this first section of information, we're going to look over the many different supplies that you will need to properly set up a saltwater swim tank. There are definitely several things you will need to consider before making your first purchase. First and foremost, you will want to consider how much money you want to spend on your entire project, and then work from there. Saltwater tanks can be a costly hobby, and if not consistently maintained properly, can literally drain your piggy bank. If this is indeed your first saltwater fish tank, then as we have previously mentioned, it would be a good idea to take notes on all of the supplies you're going to need. Once you have your list, then you can get a professional at the fish supply store to help you choose the right products. So once you have established how much money you can spend, you can start looking at the tanks. When choosing the size of an aquarium that is right for you, several factors come into play. The first issue being how spacious the tank is. You must make sure that the aquarium you choose or have already chosen will work with the space you have available in your home or your office. The second factor that we want to look at is the time that you have to devote to your new hobby. Believe it or not, sometimes a larger aquarium is easier to care for than a smaller one. In some cases, keeping a good, consistent water quality is harder to maintain in a smaller aquarium. So you might benefit from weighing out the advantages of a large aquarium versus a smaller one. Along with the tank, you will need an aquarium stand, a glass top, a canopy, and of course the proper lighting fixture or fixtures. Once you have decided on the perfect tank and stand, you will then need to buy the appropriate amount of filtration for your tank size. Filtration units come in many different types and sizes, so be sure to use one or more to get the desired filtration. Next, you will need to decide what type of substrate you will use in it. Substrate is the material used for the bottom of the aquarium. It helps to keep in consideration the other factors involved in your tank when choosing the type and coarseness of the substrate. If you're not sure on what substrate will work best for you, be sure to check with your local fish store for helpful advice. Next, you will want to get the appropriate heating or cooling devices to keep your tank at the desired temperature. And be sure to pick up a thermometer so you can keep a close eye on any changes. Now that you have all the basics chosen, it's time for you to start thinking about decorating your tank. There are so many different types of things that you can use to achieve your final look. There will be hundreds of ideas to select from that are available from your favorite aquatic retailers. Along with all the physical supplies that you will need for your setup, you will also need salt water and the proper chemicals to both prepare your tank as well as maintain it. You will also need the proper equipment to test the water quality and salinity of the water. But have no fear, we of course will cover all of these subjects in detail in future scenes. Now that you have all of your supplies chosen and you're ready to set up your aquarium, you will need to choose where you're going to place it. When choosing the location, you'll want to avoid areas where major temperature fluctuations occur. For example, you don't want to place it right in front of a window that receives direct sunlight or right in front of an air vent. This will cause the temperature of the water in your tank to fluctuate, which is not desirable for fish. choosing an area that will maintain a consistent water temperature is preferred. For example, against an interior wall in your home or office that is perhaps across the way from the window, or maybe against exterior walls in the house. As long as there is proper insulation guarding the tank from outside elements, you should be fine. An important note to remember is to make sure that there is enough space between the wall and the aquarium to allow for filtration. You will also want to make sure that the location you choose has an electrical outlet close by, because a power strip will most likely be needed. Once you have chosen the location for your aquarium, you are ready to start setting it up. First thing you'll want to do when setting up your new aquarium is to wipe the inside of the glass down with a moist towel. Make sure that the towel you use is clean and doesn't have anything on it that might contaminate the water. A previously used dish rag will not work because the dish soap that may exist on the rag can contaminate your aquarium and later kill the fish that you have purchased or that you're getting ready to buy. Once you have wiped down the inside of your aquarium, place any desired backing on the back side of your tank. There are many different backings available at local aquarium stores. There are various picture backings and there are solid color backings. For the most dramatic look, a solid color backing is recommended. This will allow the decorations and the habitants of the aquarium to stand out and not be lost in a busy background. Now that you have a clean tank with the backing attached, you may place the aquarium onto the stand, making sure to place the stand in your desired location before placing the glass aquarium on top. Note: do not place the aquarium onto the stand and then attempt to move it. This would be hazardous. Once your tank and stand are in position, you may begin designing the interior of your tank. The first interior element that needs to be placed into your tank is the substrate. The substrate that you will want to use for a saltwater tank is crushed coral. Crushed coral comes in several different sized pieces, which will hereinafter be described as the coarseness of the coral. The larger the pieces of coral, the more coarse it is considered to be. When choosing which degree of coarseness would be most desirable for you, there are a couple of things to consider. First would be the ease of cleaning and the overall desired look. Coral that is considered to be very fine is almost sand-like in texture. The coral that is considered to be very coarse is in much larger pieces, and in some cases may contain whole shells. The larger the coral pieces, the more coarse the coral, and the easier it is to clean. For some people, this is the preferred choice. The second thing to consider is the kind of fish that you will want to have. If you use one of the more coarse coral substrates, it will limit certain types of fish that you might want to own. For example, very coarse substrates are not desirable for fish whose function in the tank is to sift through the substrate. These fish are called sand sifters. Sand sifters require a very fine substrate for them to be able to pass it through their gills in search of food. You may still own these fish with coarse coral. Just be aware that they will not be able to forage for food on their own and will require frequent feedings. Also, they may injure themselves if they attempt to sift. So consider your species choices carefully according to the substrate coarseness you choose. Once you have chosen the ideal size pieces or coarseness of coral you desire, it is time to prepare it before you put it into your new tank. The first thing you want to do before adding the substrate to the aquarium is to rinse it off thoroughly. Generally, the easiest way to do this is to put the crushed coral in a clean bucket. Usually, a new 5-gallon bucket from any local hardware store will do the job. Make sure that whatever kind of bucket you use, it has not been used prior to this occasion. Plastic has a tendency to hold on to any chemicals that have been put into it before. For example, soap. and you don't want to add any possible contaminants into your tank. When rinsing the substrate, you may either go outside with the hose or do it in the bathtub, whichever is easier, depending on how much coral needs to be rinsed. If using a hose, make sure the end of the hose is clean and place the hose deep into the coral. This will help to flush out all the dust and debris trapped between the coral pieces. You will also want to give the coral an occasional shake to get out all of the possible dirt. If you are rinsing the coral in the bathtub, you will have to mix the coral up a little more often, since the water is only going to hit the top of the substrate. It is also up to you to make sure all the dust trapped at the bottom of the bucket is released. Regardless of how you decide to rinse the substrate, it still needs to be rinsed until the water runs clear. Once the crushed coral is thoroughly rinsed, it may be drained and placed into the tank. At this time, it is recommended that if you have any large pieces of coral decoration or any decoration that needs to sit directly on the glass bottom of the tank, then you should rinse it and place it into the tank as well before adding the substrate. The next thing you will want to add to the substrate is a live nitrifying bacterium, also found at a fish supply store. By adding live bacteria directly to the substrate before adding the water to your tank, it will help to establish the bacteria cultures that are needed to cycle the aquarium. The goal of cycling your tank is to establish a bed or colony of bacteria in your biological filter and in your substrate that will help eliminate toxins made by the fish's waste. The bacteria grown will then digest the ammonia from their waste, turning it into nitrite. As the nitrite levels rise, the bacteria then turns the nitrite into less harmful nitrate. One thing to keep in mind is that depending on your setup, cycling your tank can take several weeks. But don't worry, you'll learn more about cycling your tank later on in this video. Filtration is by far the most important component in assuring the success of your swim tank. Without proper filtration, waste will build up in the tank, contaminating the water and making it uninhabitable for your fish. The amount and type of filtration required will depend on the size and dimensions of your tank. There are several different types of filters available today, ranging from those that hang onto the back of your aquarium to those that sit beneath the tank, called canister filters. There are also several different brands of each. It is recommended that you consult your local aquarium store for the types of brands available. For smaller tanks that hold 1 to 20 gallons of water, either a small canister filter or an over-the-back filter will work fine. For medium-sized tanks that hold 29 to 50 gallons, either the suggested size canister filters or even a mixture of canister and over-the-top filters is recommended. For anything larger than a 50-gallon tank, at least one canister filter is recommended, possibly two, along with the possible addition of over-the-back filters, depending on the height of the tank. It is much better for your tank to be slightly over-filtrated than under-filtrated. The more filtration you have, the more times the water will change over in your tank, providing clean filtered water to your fishes. Now that you have the proper filtration for your tank, it is recommended to put the filters together now and put them in the desired place before filling the tank with water. Directions for assembling your filter will be located in the box in which it came. Note: remember to remove the carbon packets from the plastic and rinse thoroughly before putting them in the filter. Once the filter is assembled, you may place it in the desired position on the tank. Do not plug in the filters until the tank is full and the filters are primed. There are two ways to get the water for your saltwater aquarium. One is to purchase sea salt water, ready to go, from your local aquarium store if it's available. and the other way is to mix the water yourself. When preparing the water yourself, you will need a large bucket or trash can, preferably on wheels, sea salt mix, and a hydrometer. The size of the bucket you will need will be determined by the size of your aquarium. First, fill your bucket with room temperature water, which would be around 76 to 78 degrees. Next, add some sea salt mix, mixing the salt into the water as you pour it in. Directions should be located on the bag as to how much salt to add. The desired salinity for a saltwater tank is 1.020 to about 1.023. To determine the salinity of your water, you will use the hydrometer. Submerge the hydrometer in the water mixture until it is full, making sure there are no air bubbles inside the hydrometer, as this will skew the reading. Once the hydrometer is full and there are no air bubbles, read the salinity. If it reads less than 1.020, then you will want to add more salt. If it reads over 1.023, then you will want to add more fresh water. After you reach the desired salt content, make sure to dechlorinate the water using any brand of saltwater aquarium dechlorinator that you can purchase from the fish store. Once these steps are complete, you may add the water to your tank. If you have a larger tank, you may have to transfer the water into a smaller bucket in order to put it into the aquarium, or you can use a pump to get the water from a larger bucket into the aquarium. It is recommended to fill the tank half to 3/4 of the way full. This will leave room for your decorations. You see, the larger the decorations you have, the more room you will want to leave available for water rise. Now, this is the fun part. When adding decorations to your tank, the style is completely up to you. For a saltwater swim tank, there are a variety of decorations that can be used, ranging from various types of rock to different dried or fake coral pieces. Note, no live coral can be added to a swim tank. You can even choose from a large variety of plants. This is where you put a little of you into your aquarium. The way your tank is set up and decorated is what will make it unique. The only advice that will be given in this section is to make sure that when you design the interior layout of the tank, make sure that there are plenty of hiding spots for your fish. If there is no place for your little creatures to feel safe, either from other fish in the tank or from onlookers outside of the tank, it will cause unnecessary stress for them. Also, make sure to rinse the decorations thoroughly as well before adding them to the tank. One more bit of advice. It is recommended to use decorations designed for a saltwater aquarium instead of those designed for a freshwater aquarium, especially plants. This will give your tank a more realistic look, but again, it is completely up to you when choosing your decorations. Once your decorations are in place, you may also add the appropriate heater at this time, making sure the heaters are set to the desired temperature, which is 76 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, before adding them to the aquarium. Now that you have all the interior additions properly placed inside your tank, you may fill the tank the rest of the way up with salt water. You will also want to add salt water to your filtration devices according to the directions. Now that your tank is full, you will need to add the proper conditioners to the water. The first is a complete water conditioner. This will remove chlorine, chloramines, and other harsh elements that are found in tap water. You will definitely need to follow the directions when figuring the amount of conditioner to add. Some waters may contain more chlorine than others, so adding a little additional conditioner never hurts. When adding the conditioner, just simply measure out the desired amount and then pour it directly into the tank. Pouring it evenly across the surface of the water is preferred. The next step is to add more nitrifying bacteria. This is the same bacterium that you added directly to the substrate earlier. Again, you will want to follow the directions when figuring out the appropriate amount for your size aquarium. For brand new tanks such as this one, a little additional bacterium never hurts. It is also recommended to add some bacteria directly into the filter. This will help to process wastes, whether they fall to the bottom of the tank or they are picked up by the filtration unit. Make sure to refrigerate your bacterium after opening. The other addition you may need to add to your tank is a buffering solution. A buffer is used to regulate the pH of your water. When ready to add fish, you can have the pH of your water tested to see if a buffer is necessary. This can also be done at your local aquarium store. The water conditioner and nitrifying bacteria are the two main additions needed to prepare the water in your tank to house your fish. Other additions may be needed depending on the advice given by whatever fish professional you are getting your advice from. You are now in the final stages before the exciting addition of fishes to your new aquarium. Now that your tank is full and the chemicals are added, let's make sure everything is plugged in. First, check your heaters, and then take a look at your filtration units. Make sure that the filters are full of water and the tops are on before plugging them in. Some filters are self-priming, and others require you to pump water through them in order to get them started. The directions to the filter should make it clear if pumping or priming is required. The last thing you need to do is make sure your thermometer is in place. Electronic thermometers are the most accurate, but any aquarium temperature gauge will get the job done. All right, let's do one last check to make sure everything is in place before we bring home your fishes. First, your aquarium is clean and located in the proper area of your home or office in an attempt to reduce temperature fluctuations in the tank. Secondly, any large decorations that need to be placed directly on the bottom of the glass tank are already in their desired position. Next, be sure that the proper substrate has been chosen according to your desired look and functions, thoroughly rinsed and placed in the bottom of the tank. Then,